And
Do we have WinCam?
so I was about to say that. So welcome everyone to the Friday, February 27th, 2026 meeting of the Winchester Planning Board. We are recording this meeting. WinCam was unable to attend. After the meeting is done, we will share the recording with WinCam so they can post it on their site. But anybody who wants to be viewing it can be logging into the Zoom. So this access is available. We have a short agenda. We have a continuing a public hearing for PB 25-6, which is for 10 Converse Place. And then we have adjournment, unless there's any updates that we have that are not substantial after the public hearing. I would welcome a motion to move into the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
And a roll call vote. I'm going to turn off this agenda because I don't think we really need it, so I can actually see people's faces. Roll call, Jack.
Here.
Carrie.
Here, present.
I think it's an aye. I think it's a roll call.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye, present here.
Nick.
Aye.
John, you're down. There you are, John.
Aye. Aye.
I vote aye as well. I will note for the record that we have Taylor Herman, the town planner. And again, as I said, we will be sharing this recording with WinCam so that everybody else who's not here can see it. So we are picking up where we left last week. I'm going to give a brief introduction and welcome you all back. To use the analogy that our moderator uses at town meeting, it's fourth and inches and the clock is at 1 second. And please forgive my football analogy if it doesn't work out and those didn't make sense. I'm more of a hockey or a baseball player fan, and baseball just keeps on going forever. So we are not. This ends. I'd like to start by thanking the working group that's devoted countless hours the last few weeks to get to today. Their work and they are greatly appreciated by me and by this board. The working group determined that 5 stories for this development within building affordable units is not economically feasible and that a payment in lieu is warranted. We as a board need to determine whether the applicant proved that it was economically infeasible and in the best interests of the town to accept a payment in lieu. That group looked at comparable units in town, and based on my understanding from that group, the payment in lieu should be in the range of $1.7 to $3 million, depending on the comps used. Carrie will be getting into that shortly. We received ample feedback from the Housing Partnership Board, both in written and verbal testimony. They considered a payment in lieu several weeks ago and wrote a memo regarding their thinking, and we know their opinion. A member of their board has actively been involved in the working group discussions. Remember, we are asking a developer to turn a 6-story economically feasible project into a 5-story unfeasible project based upon the feedback from many, many different stakeholders, and indeed from the general public. It behooves us to weigh everything carefully and at the same time realize that if 5 stories is economically unfeasible with urban spaces, it will be with the next developer as well. In the best case, we'll be here again in a year, and in the worst case, we'll be looking at a much larger building in a year. And in that time, we will not have been working on an additional 34 units in the town center and publicly accessible open space. We'll not be getting a building permit fee soon, and we will not be close to getting $500,000 a year in tax revenue. We have a good developer and a good project that meets the needs of the town. And today, I'm going to call on 3 votes after our discussion today. The first vote I'm going to ask for, if someone will make it after our discussion, is to approve a payment in lieu to be paid to the Affordable Housing Trust. And I would note that the regulations do not identify the Affordable Housing Trust because it did not exist at the time, but that is the appropriate account to utilize, and we should make that specific in our motion. I'm going to request a second vote to set up a working group to negotiate the excess revenue threshold and payments under that clause. I just want to note this is not a payment in lieu. This is something that the developer offered. And if market conditions rise between now and sale, there could be substantial upside to the town, and we should exercise this option. And if, regardless of how that vote passes, if vote number 1 passes, I will request a vote to approve the special permit as conditioned by all of the previous votes. So as I mentioned in our last meeting, we are only deliberating today. We had our public comment end at the last meeting. This is now for our chance to deliberate and discuss. And I want to thank you all. And I am going to immediately turn it over to Carrie, because Carrie was one of the members of that working group. Carrie has a good understanding of the payment in lieu options. And I would think you would be the perfect person to take it from there, Carrie. So thank you.
Ooh, my pleasure. Thank you for allowing us the time to explore the 5-story option. And I want to just there's no way to give sufficient thanks to Marty Jones and to Chris Galetta and to everyone who participated in both working groups. I will thank the second group in a minute, but Marty and Chris have been in both working groups and have been unbelievably valuable to have this kind of talent in town, and the spirit of volunteerism and this and the will to move the town forward, and willing to give this number of hours is really incredible, and they really cannot be overthanked. And John Cortizes was in the working group with me, and I hope he will keep me honest in this discussion, and Taylor was there as well. And everyone, including the applicant, came to the table with earnest interest in making a feasible project at 5 stories, which was clearly expressed to be the will of the town and the maximum height that the town had an appetite for. We reviewed the pro forma. We signed confidentiality agreements because this is a private project, and investors need to be recruited, and the sensitivity of those natures. We reviewed it. We looked at the numbers, and the margins were tight. And so we were initially told that 2 units would be feasible. That would have violated our bylaw. And so we worked on exploring whether or not it would be possible to get 4 units in the building at 80% AMI, which would have been what was required for a building that at the time I think had 37 units in it. I may be getting that wrong, but it was above 35. It was sort of barely feasible if we had gotten several accommodations. The process for us getting there is nicely detailed in Marty Jones's memo to the board, which is dated February 10th. So I won't rehash all of the details of that. But we worked our way through a process of looking at the pro forma, meeting a couple times with the applicant, a couple times without the applicant, to sort of make sure our interests were aligned and we were clearly communicating the needs of Winchester, and the applicant was able to respond and did flexibly and earnestly. It would have been, we would have needed compromises to create this hybrid option where we could have gotten the 80% units in the building. There was no way to get the 6 in the building. And so it would have required a payment in lieu for workforce units and units in the building. It was contingent on several things, kind of none of which materialized. One would have been a waiver of actually initially we thought about stretching the price point of the workforce units from 120% to 150%. This was not feasible because it violates our bylaw, so we were not able to make that accommodation. We considered we asked the select board, we wrote a memo to the select board requesting an appointment, or requesting an agenda item on there. Requesting a meeting with the select board to discuss the possibility of waiving the building permit fees. We were told that there was unanimous rejection of that concept, and so we were not brought to the table for that. That concept was denied. We asked for a change in price from the bank. We proposed splitting a reduction in fees with the applicant to make back some of the money and have that applied to affordable units. That was denied by the bank, and we were very surprised to find that although we were making significant progress towards approving the special permit, the bank was also not willing to extend the timeline that we had to work under. And so now all of a sudden everyone's feet were very much to the fire, and we have to wrap this up by tomorrow, technically probably Monday morning, but February 28th became the very hard deadline upon Paul making that request. We needed some flexibility in the placement of where the units would be placed. The value of units that would be facing the Aberjona River, would be slightly higher. And in normal distribution of affordable units, it has to be fair distribution of affordable units. So that flexibility would not be feasible in the eyes of the affordable housing group, either at the town level or at the state level. And so ultimately, the result of that working group was that, whether we call it the hybrid option or whether we call it affordable housing in the building, it was not feasible. It would have required kind of this very fragile collection of accommodations that did not work out. As part of that negotiation, we had also discussed the possibility of a profit share because the margins are so tight, but the real estate is uniquely valuable. Winchester I mean, this is a unicorn parcel in the Boston area in that it is on a waterfront in a beautiful downtown in a town with very highly valued school systems, a great place to age in place. It's very valuable real estate. So we are all expecting the project to do very well, and the applicant was willing to arrange a profit share where the town would benefit if the project does better than they are anticipating, which of course everyone around the table was hoping for. We brought that result to the planning board, and we were in agreement that the payment in lieu was the next step of the negotiation. So the working group was expanded. We added Mike Betancourt from the Select Board, John Serbier from the Housing Partnership, Jennifer Caffarello was able to join us, and I Ching from Housing Partnership joined us. It was a really inspiring group of people, and we had a very robust discussion about how to arrive at a fair payment in lieu. That's where the worksheet comes in if we want to put that up. It's a difficult discussion. It's a very, I want to give you a sense of
Do you want me to share that now?
Yeah, whoever.
Okay.
I sort of left my sort of back of the napkin calculation at the very top of it. So the first thing you'll see is me just sort of working out the average square feet for each of the type of units. So you can sort of ignore that first top part.
I'll be up in a second. Go ahead. I'm just taking me a moment to get everything.
Okay, so the applicant had initially offered a $1.5 million payment in lieu as an opening discussion point, and by the time the working group was convened, they had given us this top starting point chart, which resulted in a payment in lieu of 1.745. I'm just going to make it a little bigger because I am not getting any younger. For myself. Okay, there we go. So the starting point was this chart. We had the designation of unit types, the number of bedrooms included, the anticipated market value of those units, the restricted value, so that means the maximum value at the affordable housing cap, and then the differential, so the difference between the market value and the restricted value. Per their calculations, we were at 1.745. So then, of course, the exercise is a difficult one because the exercise is really to take, do you take the average of units that have been sold in the area? And is that a fair comparison? And we immediately took that off the table because Winchester is a unique market. If we concluded it with surrounding towns, it would not be a fair comparison. So then within the town, we look at the units that have been sold in the last 6 months. And so, the comps then include the comparable properties that have been sold for 1 and 2 and 3 bedroom condos, created this worksheet that they sent over. So I built the columns out a little bit. I included the square feet. That's my top little section in the back of the napkin calculation on square feet and the average price per square foot. So while they had given us these numbers to arrive at the market value, I essentially took every single 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom that they listed. I averaged out the price per square foot and found the market value that way, left their restricted values in place for this calculation. And if we did the calculations that way, we arrived at a number that was 1.92. We had a long discussion about the fact that several of the units that have been sold in the past 6 months include units at the Parkview. The Parkview is an interesting building because the units are small, so arguably the price per square foot is higher, but we can't possibly build that building again. It's an older building, it's a high-rise building. It requires a higher HOA fee, and I want to call out Jennifer Caffarella for her valuable contribution on this point, which is that we can't take the mortgage price for that building because the age and the condition of the building creates elevated HOA fees, and that cost has to be factored into the monthly cost for folks who are who are purchasing these units. And so I took the Parkview out because it was hotly contested and it made sense to sort of take it out as a parcel that's not comparable. We have to decide in this if we can take this money and buy something that is comparable with the differential. And so taking the Parkview out, that brought us to 1.945. And then I Ching, who is a former planning board member who I miss dearly on this board, she is a member of the Housing Partnership Board and a real estate agent, had created a comp sheet. And so based on her comp sheet, if we put in parcel, sort of if your realtor were to say, how should we price your house? Let's do a comparison that, sort of like bringing it down to properties that are more similar to the unit that you're actually discussing. Based on those units, we would be looking at a differential closer to 2.8. And then two other changes that we made. One is that specifically downtown units. So I Ching's comp sheet included units that are outside the downtown area. And what's unique and special about this building is you are steps from the MBTA station. You are steps from services. You're in the middle of downtown. You're across the street from the Jenks. And so looking specifically at the two buildings that had sales that were very close to this building and very comparable in sort of quality of unit, we included only units. I included only units that were at Elmwood Ave and then at 10 Winchester Place. So they're direct neighbors. There were no one bedroom units sold in the last 6 months, which highlights the need for the inventory. And that differential brought us to 3.042. You see the number. Jennifer Caffarella had then added in that her affordable housing calculation, which is a formula I did not want to replicate, so I took her numbers. You have to essentially work backwards. If the income is this and this percent of your monthly revenue is going towards your mortgage payment, this is the maximum, and this is what you would be able to qualify for with a 3% down payment. Sort of all of those factors come into it. So her estimation of the restricted values is a bit lower than the applicants. Everyone's going to move the numbers in their direction. So I adjusted the last chart to be I Ching's comp sheet and Jennifer Caffarella's affordable housing prices to kind of strongly favor Winchester, and we keep hovering around this $3 million mark. And so that's sort of how we arrived at the final discussion of the payment in lieu. So 1.5 was too low. 3 million is not feasible to pay as a direct payment in lieu, but we went back to the idea of the structure that we had in place previously. So the point that I believe we're at now would be $2 million as a direct payment in lieu, paid to the Affordable Housing Trust, and then a percent of revenue in excess of, how are you wording it, Brian? There's a term we're using that's not windfall. I keep thinking windfall.
I had it right here, but everything is.
If the revenue on the project, if the gross revenue on the project is higher than we anticipate, there would be a payment.
Gross revenue threshold. Gross revenue threshold was, I think, with the term we were using.
Yes. No one wants to be in this position. This is not the position that the planning board wants to be in. If we are not able to get affordable units in the building, I think we have all struggled with this, and we want to make sure that any payment is a meaningful sum and is able to be used in the short term. And I know all of us have spent many hours contemplating that and making sure that we're committed to that. And if we focus on that piece, this feels like a loss. If we go as we have to as the planning board to a broader lens, going to a 5-story has gotten us a building that is closer to the scale of the downtown. It has gotten the Historic Commission from a firm no to a okay. And we've gotten the permitting fees will be paid to the select board. The tax revenue will increase for the select board. The Council on Aging is in favor of this project. The Disability Access Committee has weighed in favor of this project. The sidewalks will be wider, the building will be more maneuverable, the units will be accessible. The Conservation Commission has protected the open space, and the town will have access to that open space. Economic development will improve with the 2 commercial spaces. So in sum, we have to look at this as a win for the town, but the affordable housing piece does cause some consternation. I I am frustrated. We are all frustrated by the timeline because Marty Jones has been stuck in the very awkward position of representing a large and active and passionate body over two different working groups. The Housing Partnership Board has given their opinion that this is not something that they're in favor of. So we do have a recommendation of unfavorable action from the Housing Partnership Board, but they have not had a chance to convene since the last working group, which really is. I mean, I would say there are probably texts and emails I have not even read yet. They really went to the 0 hour. So I would like, at least if has she joined us? If Marty is here, I would love for her to be able to have the floor for a minute to catch anything that I missed and to speak a little bit more clearly about the revenue piece, because that is my weakest area. But again, I want to thank the incredible amount of time and expertise that was donated to this group and the amount of effort that has gone into this project. It's been debated really since the 70s. If you've read the history of this parcel, town meeting has seen this for 50 years. It's not an easy parcel, and we are at the tush push, and I just hope that we can get a good result for the town.
Thank you, Carrie. That was tremendously valuable history and current events lesson you just gave us to get us all caught up with what you were able to determine, especially the spreadsheet that you prepared. I really appreciate that. I'd be delighted to let Marty speak, but I wanted to, before we do that, I would love to go around the table, and then I think that's what it makes most sense. Yep. Just because I don't want members of the board to not have a chance to speak before we let other people speak. And we're not letting other people speak for public comment, but I do respect that she was in that meeting and she has valuable insight. So why don't we go around the table, and then we can invite Marty as needed. So I would welcome comments and feedback from other members. We did, as you mentioned, receive a memo from the Historical Commission. It might be worth reading some of that or part of that into the record so that we have that, because that is a new, they actually basically had an emergency agenda item and added it onto their meeting so that they could be responsive to us quickly, and I very much appreciate that. I don't know, Jack, do you have that email?
Yeah. I've got it right here.
Perfect. As a former member of that commission, yes. I figured you would.
Yes. Thank you, Carrie. That was really a superb wrap up, and you took all my arguments for me, so I won't say much. As Brian said, the Historical Commission met Wednesday night in a bit of I think they had a meeting anyway because of the snowstorm, so it was fortuitous in that regard that they also took up this matter. Originally, back in October, the Historical Commission had ruled unanimously against this project. They felt it was in conflict with the historical nature, the historical resource of downtown. In light of the planning board's vote on Tuesday night to advance the 5-story option, they had a reconsideration on Wednesday night, and I will just read their conclusion here, which consists of half a dozen sentences. The commission finds that the 5-story building currently being proposed for 10 Converse Place, and as reviewed by the planning board in its February 24th, 2026 meeting, continues to be taller and larger than would be preferred by the Historical Commission, considering its location in our historic downtown and its proximity to the National Register listed Mill Pond Waterway. However, we find the architectural design to be aesthetically positive and compatible, and we appreciate the fact that the revised plans decrease the number of floors to 5, include retail space on the ground floor that will help integrate the building into the streetscape, and maintain public green space adjacent to the pond.
Thank you. If you have anything else to add, feel free.
No, as I say, Carrie said everything I wanted to say.
Okay, I'll turn it over to Nick, since I see you right there. If you have any comments or things you'd like to say, I want to. This is our chance to discuss this.
I just had a couple minor points, but I'm not sure they relate specifically to the matter of the valuation of the building.
Do you want to come back? So you want to come?
Yeah. So why don't we come back to that? We can come back to my points.
Absolutely. Don't remind me if I move on to something else to say, hey, Brian, I was going to say something else, and we'll come back to that.
That sounds great.
Okay. So I'll move on to John. I don't see where you are, but I know you're here. There. Hi, John.
So when I think about the revenue sharing idea, the first thing that occurred to me was that there's some millions of dollars in there that are associated with commercial sales, the commercial condos. I think there are three, and I think we all recognize that a couple of them, the retail restaurant space, may take a long time to sell, or it may be a few years. The developer may have to rent them and not actually sell them for a while. I think everyone recognizes this could happen. So I was thinking about timing when we decide what the total sale is. And maybe we should focus on the residential space. I mean, the commercial space is a sort of volatile market. You never quite know where you're going to end up. In the residential space, our concerns here are mostly residential. That's a more certain commodity and something that is likely to sell in some reasonable time frame when we can all still be paying attention to figuring out what is the total sale price. Otherwise we could be waiting years, to figure out when we finally have the total. But
Yep.
That's a good point. And if we go down that road,
we'd have to
be specific that we're talking about just that and not the commercial.
We'd have to really do a lot of thinking about how we're going to craft that, and the time frames, and how we're going to measure this, and when payments can be made. When all the things that you usually have to do in these sorts of agreements. But I was thinking about it. We all agree those spaces could take a while to turn into a sale. If ever, they could go get into a leasing this situation. We're going to do a 5-year lease with a couple of renewals or something. And I know Paul has mentioned that's happened in the past. It's not uncommon that developers have to do this. So, you'd be sitting there thinking, well, we're almost in the profit. We're almost going to, and then we just got to sit there and monitor it, through one select board or planning board after another. It's a thought.
And I would just add, I agree 100%, especially if some of those spaces are leased indefinitely, perhaps urban spaces or their heirs just are landlords for some of those spaces in perpetuity. In which case it would be a little hard to put a number on it. So that would be something in my mind that needs to be worked out. And it's certainly the scope of it needs to be sort of, shaped, fleshed out now, but the details, the valuations, all those things are not something that any of us is capable of doing at this point in time. It's going to have to be something that's going to be worked on.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to set up a working group to come to those numbers and work in good faith. There might be no upside. So my thinking is it's possible that the numbers don't work out in a way that gives us any particular appreciable value. But again, we're talking about something that's several years down the road before these things sell out. We don't know which way the market's going to go. They could go way up. They could be worth much more than any of us imagine because of their location.
Right. I think the residential, there is some real potential upside there. The commercial, you just imagine the commercial accounts for millions of dollars, and you could never get to that number that we've all seen in the pro forma because you haven't sold the commercial yet. But you did great on the residential. You're way ahead of your projections, but the town still isn't getting any profit sharing because we haven't sold the commercial stuff yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's And we are mostly interested in the residential part. This conversation, when it comes to the money, is about residential stuff, and
Agreed.
it's the way to think about it. Yeah.
So, sort of trying to lead this conversation in a direction, we need to decide as a committee that, exactly what I said in my opening sort of statement. We need to determine whether we believe the applicant has shown that it's economically infeasible and in the best interest of the town to accept a payment in lieu. I would argue that's the first thing we need to decide. And after, if we are able to determine that with specific examples, then we can move on to showing, determining what we think that value is. And that spreadsheet you had, Carrie, went a long way. I should say for the record that the applicant has increased their offer of a payment in lieu to $2 million, as well as the
bonus.
$2 million they've offered it to. The sort of bonus is not part of the payment in lieu. It's a separate sort of animal. Because we can't count on it. It's not a known number. So,
but they did increase it from 7% to 15% with a $1 million cap. So on paper, theoretically, we could get as much as $3 million.
1 million.
No, 1 million plus the 2.
Oh,
well, yeah, 1 million plus whatever it is we decide makes sense. So
yes, correct.
Yeah,
I really think it's important to let Marty speak.
Absolutely, we're going. Okay. Absolutely, 100%. Okay. I wanted us to be able to have our conversation, so that no one felt like they didn't get a chance to speak about this topic before we let her in. I'm not shutting her out, I promise. Nick, your points are still not on this particular point, correct?
Yeah, no, my points are probably closer to the special permit.
Okay. So with that, why don't we, if we can, elevate Marty so that she can address some of the things that you mentioned. Taylor, if you're able to do that. And I want to start, Marty, by thanking you for your countless hours working with Carrie and John and others, as well as your countless hours just working for the town and for the Affordable Housing Trust. And I don't know if, Carrie, you have specific things you want to ask her, or if you just want Marty to go to town, we can go either way.
She's spectacular. Let her talk.
So thank you. And I appreciate it. I think, Brian, you were the first one who reached out to put this group together. And, I think it's always wonderful to have residents involved around the table for making big decisions. So I think it was a very robust process, but unfortunately an incredibly rushed process trying to respond to the developer's timeline at the 11th hour. Carrie did an amazing job pulling all this together and trying to push us to decisions, and especially putting this spreadsheet together that we all put a lot of time into. I think the problem I see is that the short time between just Tuesday and the vote about 5-story building and the town council's frankly surprising determination that a mix of units on site and a payment in lieu was not allowed, has just made it impossible to give everyone a voice and to digest all this information and a chance to thoughtfully reach a consensus about the best way to provide affordable housing on this site. I think a lot of people, including probably some people who really supported the 5-story building, thought that there was going to be some affordable housing in here, and that was part of the purpose of the CBD zoning. So just at a high level, I feel like the working group as a whole did not reach a consensus on a payment in lieu number. The planning board's rules require that the Housing Partnership Board weigh in on that. Several members of the Housing Partnership Board have participated in this process, but I'm not quite sure that's exactly what may have been intended by the bylaw, to really give the planning board thoughtful input from the Housing Partnership Board. And I feel very strongly, I understand the timelines. I understand the need to move this quickly. I think that there's a way, if we had another week to 10 days and people really continued to dig in, we might be able to reach something that had more of a consensus in town and for feedback to the planning board. I know that's a risk, but I think it's a risk we should be willing to take, because this just, it sets, to me, a dangerous precedent for trying to do a process right and not quite getting it right. So I would respectfully ask that you seriously consider giving this slightly amount longer time. I think a lot of the planning board issues and all the things you've already voted on should give the developer and the bank some confidence that it's moving in the right direction and it's not going to go on forever, and that it can be wrapped up. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Additional thoughts or conversation?
Just to add the communication we got on late Wednesday, or no, yesterday, from the applicant. His concluding remarks were that the Affordable Housing Working Group asked us to request additional time from the property owner, i.e. the bank, but the property owner respectfully declined due to their own internal time constraints. As such, we request that the planning board vote to accept the proposed payment in lieu and bonus payment as noted above. I completely agree with Marty. I'm totally sympathetic, but we've got a gun held to our head here. I don't know that we have the luxury of stretching this out any further than, I don't know, midnight tomorrow. You guys ready to have a meeting tomorrow?
I don't think we could post it in time anyway.
No, I know. I'm being facetious, but
I would if we could
sure.
and had to. I would. You know that.
I'll go to midnight tonight if you want to, but I just I don't know. We have a lot of choice here.
To me, the choices are, if we think this is a good project and we think it meets, it's sort of a compromise project between all of these different stakeholders who've talked in. Some want it taller, some want it shorter, some want it not at all. It's hard to sort of, we get feedback from all of these different bodies, and then it comes to us, and we're the ones who have to make the decision. We have to weigh the voice of each of these different bodies. And we've spent a year, not quite a year, we spent 9 months working on this particular proposal, 3 months before that looking on a prior proposal. And then some of you, I'm looking at you, Carrie, worked on Concom on a prior proposal 3 years ago. And maybe you were on the committee at the time then too, Nick. I can't remember.
And the Historical Commission also, Historical Commission, of which I was the chair, was also working on it 4 years ago.
So I'm just throwing this out
there. It's been going on a long time.
And we're at serious risk if we, if we take a vote and decide to deny the special permit, that's a choice. If, however, we choose not to take a vote and this goes to a new developer, and a new developer starts this timeline all over again, whether they be a 40B or not, we're starting from scratch and we get a delay in everything that's moving forward. So if we think this is a good project, if we think it meets the vast majority of all the goals that we have from all these different sides, then we should move ahead to a vote today, whatever it is. And if we don't, then punting is an option if we don't think it does. But it's not a risk-free option. It's not of course they'll come back to the table because it's only a week. Look at how far we've made it. It carries real risk, in my opinion.
No, I agree. And for all the reasons that Carrie stated, for instance, which a point I keep harping on is that every month, every year that goes by that nothing is built on this property, with probably the most high value property in Winchester, we are not collecting its fair value in tax revenue. I will repeat myself again. We are at present collecting $49,000 for the laundry building per year. as the applicant pointed out, we could be first year taking in as much as 500,000, and over the course of 10 years, 7 million. And that's not chump change.
No.
So, as I say, just to repeat myself, if we let this project slide now, as you said, who knows when we'll finally get around to getting a project approved here, whether it's us approving another project or it's a 40B that's approved by ZBA. There's not going to be a shovel in the ground anytime, what, 2028, 29, 30?
Yeah, uh, I can, I well appreciate that this feels rushed at the end, but maybe because I spent, you know, so much time in the working group that I mean, I think I've heard from the Housing Partnership and the Affordable Trust, and uh, I'm not sure what else we might hear. We have been over, as Carrie did a great job of summarizing a very long road quickly, but I think she hit all the high points. That we looked at the 6-story, we looked at the 5-story, and we looked at feasibility for both, and we decided, there's a decision. Okay, it's going to be 5. That's the way we want to go. What can we get done there? And can we get a hybrid of some units and money? And we were told no, we can't. And so okay, it's going to be money. And I don't know what more we might hear, how that would change. We were at 5 stories. It can't be a hybrid. We're unable, as I understand it, we're unable to say, okay, the town is owed a certain number of units. I think it's 5 units. Well, we'll only make you give us 4. We can't do that. We're kind of hemmed in. It seems rushed, but I'm not sure what new we would hear. We know that these are the options. We have really hashed it out with the developer and among ourselves and the working group, and a lot of experts have come in and provided some information. I'm not sure what it is I'm waiting to hear. It does feel a little rushed, but I'm not sure what the piece of information I'm missing. And I realize that that I was in those working groups, or some of those working groups, so I've had a more detailed road down path here to get here. But what Carrie described, that's it. She pretty much told us that many alternatives had been explored and rejected, and we end up here. I'm not sure what we'd hear else. For taking the risk, I'm not sure what we might get.
It might be worth pointing out one other nuance, which is that I think in other projects we think a little more cleanly about the revenue streams and those things. And this is still a bank-owned property. And so we have asked the applicant to engage in a long, detailed process. They have engaged a very high tier architect who has given us a really beautiful design and had to change it. We went from 6-story, they gave us multiple roof designs. We went from 6 to 5. We changed the internal layout several times. They had to reevaluate whether we could convert the Mount Vernon Street commercial space into housing, which required reevaluating the structural elements, including those connected to the parking garage, and ultimately decided that wasn't feasible. Then they moved the walls again to get to a 34 unit. We've spent months, their lawyers have been at all of these meetings, and at this point, they don't even own the property. So some of the infeasibility of the options is the fact that our process has been long and complicated, and they've been willing to hang in there with us. And they'll make money off this project. Like, let's not pretend this is sort of like a generous act or something. I mean, hopefully this will be a very successful project and everyone will make money from it. But at this point, we've been in this process for so long with them. I sincerely believe, everyone kind of threw their, by the end of the working groups, we were all just chucking cards on the table, like regardless of whose turn it was. We were just sort of like, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And with more time, I think we could come to a different outcome. I don't know if we could come to a better outcome. I think the best thing we can do is make sure that we get a meaningful sum. I think this will create housing, and we do need the housing. We've heard over and over again that this is inventory that our current residents, whichever, script or font or capital or lowercase a of affordable, is available to us. This is an affordable option for people currently living in large homes that are vacated by their children. So this is an option for housing that we do need in town, and I think our residents will be, first in line to purchase them. So we have to balance creating housing versus looking at the Mill Pond laundry building, whatever we want to call it. The Bermuda Triangle is probably what we should name it at this point. But leaving it as is not necessarily a better outcome than preserving open space, taking a high tier building, taking on a developer who is willing to hang in through a 9-month process at their own expense so far. As long as we extract an amount of money that is meaningful and that we believe we can use. And I think, as I mentioned at the last meeting, this is creating a moral moment for the planning board to take the housing production plan and create more of an action plan. And we're trying to make sure that we give the Affordable Housing Trust an amount of money that can meaningfully translate to units. Maybe we buy them back in this building. But I think that ends up having to be the sum of some very difficult, delicate issues.
I just want to
Absolutely, go
support
ahead.
Terry's idea of the moral moment. I think that, when you make a decision, it's painful to give up what you didn't choose to do. And I think that we have to put a moral debt on our planning board ledger to commit to making up the difference in inclusionary housing.
Yeah.
We're going to have, and I hope and I expect we're going to have a lot of development now up and coming with the new zoning on North Main and other places in Winchester. And we have to remember the hard decision that we took today. And we have to look at our ledger and say, we have to make the affordable housing community whole somehow. And we can't forget, we have to have a long memory and continuity.
Completely agree. Well, good point.
I agree too. One of the points that Carrie said that I want to build on for a second is the hope that this developer makes money. And we do hope developer makes money. This is a high quality developer who's seen through many significant projects. The worst case scenario for this site would be someone knocks down the laundry building, puts a steam shovel in the ground, pardon my age saying a steam shovel, but and leaves it sitting there for a couple of years because, well, they ran out of money because they were, trying to get to the lowest possible number to get this done. We want them to be successful. I want them to make money. And especially if we end up having an excess revenue term in there, that would be good for us as well.
Yep.
If they don't make money, this project will be a white elephant stuck in the middle of our town, partially done for a long time. So
Disaster.
I don't want us to say, well, somebody's getting rich. We're getting a beautiful building, enhanced downtown, enhanced waterfront, enhanced amenities. And indeed, they're making money. And that's how it should be, in my opinion.
Agreed.
So, Nick, I do want to come back to you. The question I have is, we'll come back to that if we get to the special permit, is do we agree that it's been shown to us that it's economically infeasible and in the best interest of the town to accept a payment in lieu? That's just sort of a generic, not what the amount is. And I would just start by saying it's been said over and over again by those in the working group that it's been shown economically infeasible to provide all the units that are required in this development and build a 5-story building. So that seems to be quite clear. Now, whether or not there could be 3 units and a payment in lieu, but that's been deemed not possible, and by attorneys on all sides, and I'm not going to go down that road. So do others agree that our only route to having a 5-story building is a payment in lieu, and that is in the best interest of the town as opposed to starting over?
I would agree with that statement.
I would.
Factoring in all of the limitations that we're working within, I do agree with that, even though,
Painful as it is.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
painful.
Yeah, I would have to support that as well.
Okay. So I guess the follow-up for that is how much, putting aside the excess revenue issue, what is an appropriate payment in lieu? Because the excess revenue is, I'm going to use the word speculative, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that we don't know how much it's going to be, but whatever an agreed upon amount of payment in lieu that goes to the Affordable Housing Trust is a known quantity.
I do think we should vet it a little bit more in tandem before we settle on that. And again, I would ask Marty to maybe be the person who gives us a little more background on how we're getting there, and you give us a little background on whether we will need to decide that number in tandem with the payment in lieu.
So, of course, Marty can speak. My understanding, and I could be mistaken, is that the speculative nature of that the excess revenue threshold means that we can't necessarily count it as a payment in lieu. It's not. It's another revenue source to the Affordable Housing Trust, much like money for going to Concom for and we can have negotiation for things like that. But if we're talking about what is being used offset the missing affordable units, I think that is the cash value payment in lieu. That's my understanding, having talked to a number of individuals. Certainly, if Marty is able to speak, she can address that as well. I'm happy to, as you suggest, let her speak. But
And if she's comfortable, I would love to have her walk us through this.
I have to say I'm unclear on the question exactly.
No, I'm sorry. I just get for our millions and millions of viewers watching at home, if you can sort of walk through, how we would decide that, whether we need more time to figure it out, if we have the numbers we need, that sort of thing. Like what would be the correct timing to settle a number, just even the broad strokes. I know we don't have to pull up the minutia, but
The payment in lieu number?
no, not the payment in lieu, the excess revenue calculation.
Well, I mean, there was, the basic concept is that it's a differential between revenue and cost, and there's a sharing percentage. And I think we wanted some additional detail on what the revenue was composed of. I think John's point about timing is really critical about how that works and what's included because of the vagaries of the market and what could happen. So that needs some more thinking. So I think it's probably, a couple of meetings, not too long to hash it out. I think we're getting close to a format, but there's some issues we need to figure out how the mechanics of it will work.
And then correct me where I'm wrong, but I understand that some of the construction costs, because this is still a negotiation between the applicant who's not quite purchased the property yet and the bank, that the full sort of construction costs won't be understood until that process is past us. So right now we're still sort of dealing with a lot of like squishy numbers.
Right. The full construction cost is not known usually until you're ready to put the shovel in the ground. I mean, there's probably a ways to go before that happens. They're not detailed drawings because the building's just been, approved conceptually at this point, and there's a lot of work that Paul and his team have to do to work that out. So there are obviously still a lot of unknowns.
Brian, I don't know if that's helpful.
I mean, I think it is helpful. What it says to me is that it would be impossible to put hard numbers on this at a special permit phase, because they're never going to get those numbers at the special permit phase because they're going to wait till they have a special permit. And the best choice we have is to commission a group to work with them and do good faith negotiations between now and then. That's why I say it's speculative. It could have upside. There's no downside. It's not like we owe them money if they make too little. It's an issue of if there's upside, especially, you guys worked on the pro forma. If there's upside that could be had, obviously, if the costs are more, there's going to be less upside. But I think I think it's a way to go, and I think we should have a working group that works with them to hash this out. But it's going to take months, perhaps. I don't want to say years, perhaps a year to actually be able to work some of that detail out.
No, I don't. That's not true. We can set a formula for when we could figure out what the construct is.
I agree.
Yeah.
When we
Yep.
peg the number, yeah, you won't know the answer to what the sharing is until the building's complete. But it's not that long to figure out the mechanics and the words of what the agreement is.
No, fair. And I probably misspoke. We won't know what the building cost is in a month. But the mechanics can be worked out relatively quickly with a working group. But the actual numbers that are going to populate that will take much longer.
It's probably helpful for our millions of viewers and for the board to remember that the applicant has suggested a cap of $1 million. So depending on where we set the payment in lieu, that's probably something we should factor in to getting to a total that optimally would be one thing. And, obviously, worst case scenario, this is $0 to $8, but best case scenario, it would be capped at $1 million.
That's the point I was awkwardly trying to make earlier.
I got you, Jack.
If everybody agrees to a cap.
If everyone agrees to a cap. Fair point. But yes. So it's the worst best case scenario, but to be negotiated.
So we bring ourselves back to, so Carrie, it was your suggestion that we
I just wanted all of the information before we open the.
Couple those two together, but in a sense, they also are decoupled because one is a payment that's going to be guaranteed regardless of how well the development does. And the other one is something that's going to be negotiation that depends on how well the development does. If they sell, they're really hot units and they make a lot of money, there'll be some for us. And if they aren't, they aren't. I hope they are for them and for us. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel like there are two different votes we ultimately need to make. One is to accept a payment in lieu amount, whether it be, and I think that if it's anything other than what they proposed, we need to bring them in because they have to agree to this. We're not going to propose, if we say payment in lieu is $12 million, we're not going to put that into the special permit. There's no reason to do that. It's got to be something that we agree to. They have started, they started much, much lower a long time ago. They were at the last meeting at 1.5, and they've raised that proposal to 2 million, which is in the range of some of the various estimates that you came up with. It's lower than the high values and slightly higher than the low values. So it's somewhere in the middle. That's probably, if I were to do a strict average, it's probably a little lower than the middle, but I'm not sure that strict average is necessarily the way to do it. I don't know.
I would note, just for the record, that while we are bending ourselves into pretzels, so too are the Urban Spaces team. They have given a lot. We've given a lot. I think we're trying to find the happy middle. And I think it behooves us to appreciate what they've done. Excuse me.
So I'll throw out there that for the sake of this development that I think is very beneficial for the town, I'm comfortable, again, decoupling these two concepts with a $2 million payment in lieu to the Affordable Housing Trust.
As am I.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Did you toss a number out?
I said I'm comfortable with the proposed number, which has been raised from $1.5 to $2 million as proposed by Urban Spaces, and I'm comfortable with that number, is what I said.
Ah.
Are you looking for a motion?
I would love to get sort of like people's comfort.
Okay.
And I would also love a motion, but I don't want to steamroll if
No, we don't want to
No, I think they've given us the two. I think that's what we have. That's what we're going to get. And I don't see. I I think that's the number, unless someone else has some knowledge that I don't.
No, I agree with you.
I,
So what was um
I'm a little uncomfortable with the great and powerful Oz role that the bank is playing in all of this.
Yeah.
I don't know. We are told that the bank will not move on the price, and we were told that the bank has a hard deadline. This is the hard number that we have access to, and the excess revenue number is one that we should pay attention to. We should be proactive about, but that's the number that's, we're spending that number on this call right now. So, we want to make sure that we have protected as much as possible. Um, I don't know, I don't know if there's a correct sort of counterpoint. If we look, and I don't know sort of the will of the board to negotiate in real time on a call like this. So
Do you want to talk to the applicant? I want to give you that opportunity if that's something you want, but we don't need to if you don't need to. It's not like they don't need to be speaking.
I welcome Kerry's concern, and I want to support what she is struggling to.
This is sort of like the dot
reach.
that we were left in the working group. Like, we sort of like had that number thrown out at the very end of an overtime meeting, after negotiating some other issues. And it's just hard to endorse a number that may have been negotiable. So,
what is the applicant's number right now?
They have proposed $2 million as a payment in lieu.
Even?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
John, this is way more your area than mine. If you have an idea of something that would be a good counter proposal,
I'm looking at the spreadsheet that you provided. That's very, really helpful. And you know, sorry, looking it all over. And actually, I've been looking at recent sales in Winchester and thinking what you could do with a couple $1 million.
I warmly welcome all of your thoughts.
So, removing the park view, you were at $1,000,095.
That's just removing the park view, not Conan
Right.
not Willows, not.
Then, but I guess I cannot. I don't like the. I honestly, I don't think it's fair to look at. Was it Elmwood and 10?
Yeah, that
10
one's the most narrow. That's just the neighborhood. And if you'll notice, that
just
actually excludes all the one bedrooms because there was no comp for it. So I think the most sort of valuable is the last one, which is using Jennifer Caffarella's affordable housing prices, which is what would be applied to the town inventory, and then I Ching's comps, which are kind of a wider swath of the town.
when I think about doing these comps, I think so this is a luxury building. It's a certain level. And when I say, well, whenever I hear an argument, which we've heard in our working group, that it's got to be comparable to that building, not this affordable housing. I don't think affordable housing has to have a 48-inch wolf range. That's what that is. That's a wolf range house with a bunch of extra valves and fixtures in the bathroom. So as I look at this, I think I could be comfortable not too far off that $2 million number. Maybe 2.2.
Brian, should we let the applicant
Obviously,
work the 2-2?
obviously, I pulled over by now.
Somewhere in the
Thank goodness.
405 somewhere.
That's
I
good because
can't.
you're spending some time on that spreadsheet. So,
Yeah, I can't because I've been bouncing around it.
oh, that'd be the weirdest last words.
Yeah. I,
Let's I actually was on a phone call once with someone who got in a car accident. So while they were on the phone, touch screen, not touching the phone, thankfully. Why don't we elevate the applicant, and he could let him explain what he's proposed, uh, without being rude to him. Not go over everything from the beginning, just what were, sort of the topic at hand right now. And Paul, I hope you forgive me for saying don't go over everything. We're sort of what the issue is at hand here was what we're hoping to be able to address. So thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you all for deliberating and for allowing us to speak to this point. We carefully selected these numbers based on what the market is. The market is in Winchester the sum of all the activity that's occurred in the last 2 years. What we'd like the market to be is something we're going to invest $50 million in to move the market and to create a new market. We've done this before successfully, so I'm hoping that this project also will be very successful and that the town will benefit in many ways, including through the bonus mechanism. But right now, the market is $606 a square foot for a one bed. And $517 a square foot for a two bed, and $511 for a three bed. That's the aggregate of all the listings in the last couple of years. That's not debatable; those are just facts. So, is this particular building more valuable? We hope so. We're banking on it, but we don't know, and no one will. But we'll take the risk to find out. But we're taking the risk exclusively. Nobody else is taking the risk. But the town is getting the reward partially, and that's the deal we're bargaining for. So that's how we came up with the 600, 750, and $1,050,000 valuations for the ones, twos, and threes. And what I think is great is that the subsidy that we're providing, the $2 million, we pushed and pulled, and we got to as high as we were able to go. We were at 1.5 at one point, 1.8. We're trying to skinny down margins, do whatever we can do. We knew psychologically it might be important to hit a two handle, and we're there. But ultimately, that's the best we can do. And we think that the town, is obviously going to get that and hopefully up to $1 million more. We took the cap because together the $3 million was one of the numbers in the spreadsheets that we were passing back and forth. And we just said, okay, well, we'll try to get you to where you hope you could be at 3 million. I mean, some people hope they can be at 6, but we tried to pick a reasonable number based on the data. And that's where we are. So ultimately, that $2 million subsidy plus the co-payment that went from 5 affordable buyers based on the restricted values, that almost doubles the pot. So there's almost $4 million to be spent to go buy 5 units throughout the town. Not in this building necessarily, because this building will be probably more expensive than many. And that makes sense. Why not use the money efficiently? If you're buying affordable housing, you don't do it on the 50th floor of an ocean view building. You do it where you can get a bang for the buck. And that's on average what the town is. So hopefully that explanation helps. We stretched as much as we could. We thought it was 2 million was going to do the trick. We don't have any more room to go, but we do have a bonus potential to give, and hopefully that'll come to fruition because that means we all hit a home run.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you.
Are there questions for Paul?
Not a question, but I just want to drive one point home that he didn't say, which sort of what you said before, Brian, which is we want urban spaces to be successful. They clearly came up with this number as an understanding within their own profitability, it's all their calculations, that this is as far as they can go in order to, as Paul just said, this is going to be a $50 million investment on their behalf. And the last thing we want for them is to go bankrupt in the middle of this. And we've got a big cement swimming pool on Converse Place and a lot of mud. And I don't think we want that. We really want urban spaces to be successful in this. And I think they're being very sincere in saying this as far as they can go.
John, I was going to turn to you
Oh.
because you had you were the last one to speak before we asked Paul to come on, and I just want to make sure, see if you have any thoughts or anything.
No, I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking I gotta, yeah, I mean, I think uh, uh, I want to wrap. I think we're really, really close to wrapping this up, and we should.
Just
And we have a few details to work out. We certainly have to figure out the profit sharing. There are the commercial stuff and the residential stuff, two very different markets. I don't know. We really want to be tied into the commercial stuff. They did not come here to build that commercial space. They came here for the residential, and that's going to be a lot easier to manage. There's a point usually where just to move forward, everyone moves a little bit. The urban spaces has moved a lot, and we've moved a lot. I said long ago that I did not want to check. I wanted units, but I have come to realize that cannot happen. I know, Brian, I think I said that to a few times. I don't want to check. But I think that's not where we are.
One small point on the check now that Jack has given us this very clear visual of all the geese living in a mud pit at 10 Converse. If that happens, the Affordable Housing Trust doesn't get anything because we are almost locking both of these to be profit share agreements because we're not asking for the payment. I don't think that's normal. I think it's normal for us to get it at the time of the permitting. So we are taking on risk with this payment because we're assuming the building gets, I mean, obviously we're all assuming the building gets built. Equally, obviously, we've all seen projects stall for year after year after year. And so we cannot predict any of it. And that is a risk that I want to make sure that we say out loud. Like it's a weird flex to sort of wait for conditional certificates of occupancy for that payment. And I don't know the capacity of the applicant to lock it to the building permitting fee so that we know that it is closer to being actualized than the completion of the project.
I'm often accused of being an optimist, but to add an optimistic note, the mortgage rates are coming down right now. And hopefully the timing will be such that it will be to the advantage of the sales of these units.
I mean, I'm all in on this succeeding and it being, we've worked very hard. It's been a lot of, hours and years. But I'm just pointing out that this money will not be in the Affordable Housing Trust until we're issuing certificates of occupancy per the way we're structuring it.
Right.
So the risk is they're not fronting $2 million. They're waiting until they have a successful project.
Paul is raising his hand.
People want to hear? Do we want to hear? Yeah. So let's, Paul, if you could speak, I think you should be able to. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, thank you. No, I did just want to, I hear what Carrie's saying, and the point is true that anytime anything is approved in a town, we create a partnership of sorts. This is tighter than others because there's so much money at stake going back and forth. We all know the Filene's Vornado hole, so some of the biggest developers in the world can still have problems. But for whatever it's worth, we have never had a problem in 20 years. The whole history of our business, we start and then we finish. I am obliged from the bank to personally guarantee this loan. So there is, and part of those guarantees include paying the bank back, but also completing the project. So there's a real human being on the other side with his whole, life at stake if it doesn't get finished. So the stakes are high, but so are the commitments. And for whatever it's worth, I just wanted to give you some confidence in that. It's so important that the payment be pushed back. Part of the reason we were able to stretch in financial terms, we all know money today is worth more than money tomorrow. So if we have to pay interest on money today, instead of giving it to you tomorrow, we couldn't give you 2 million anymore. We'd have to pull the present value back to something lower. So while you're taking some risk, I think it's quite measured, and this project will be finished, and it will hopefully be profitable. But you'll get paid at least 2 million.
Thank you. So we could talk. I promise you we could talk about this.
Incredibly, I might be out of content.
I was about to say we could talk about this forever. I would welcome.
We'd have another debate.
I would welcome a motion that something along this lines, and Jack, you're usually really good at motions. Carrie, you too. That we, the planning board, find the presence of on-site units economically infeasible, and therefore accept a $2 million payment in lieu to go to the Affordable Housing Trust, something like that.
That was very well said, Brian. I will move that.
Second.
I can't improve that.
So that was moved by Jack and seconded by John. Is there discussion on that motion?
I think that there are a handful of votes that we all will make over our time in town service, that we vote at the 51% and not at the 100%. So
like bringing kids back to school,
we have gone
versus
to the
remote.
mat over this project, and I think this is what's possible. And I think it's meaningful money. I don't know if it's optimal money, but I think it's meaningful.
Good, well said.
Okay, if there's no additional debate on that, I would welcome a vote, and we're gonna do roll call for all of our votes, and I'll start with you, John.
Yes.
Jack.
Yes.
Nick.
Aye.
Carrie.
Yes.
Chair votes aye, so that vote is unanimous, 5-0. So that brings us to, I think, which is, for me, the much more complicated, is how we set up some sort of, this is just my idea of what we need, some sort of working group to establish this, this profit splitting, and get the scaffolding of it. We will not know how much it is, or if it is anything, for many years. We won't know the building costs for many years. But I agree with what Marty said, that we can set up the scaffold of it and then plug in the numbers later on. I don't know how we want to do that. Taylor, I don't know if you have any suggestions on this aspect of this. I know you have to, you're going to have to leave our meeting shortly, and I want to get your input on that before you have to go.
Is it your intention, are you looking to make this a condition of the special permit?
I believe it. This is me. I believe it has to be a condition of the special permit that we establish this group to come up with this formula. Otherwise, if it's not a condition, it's just a hope. Hopes and prayers don't actually get you very far. I believe.
Yeah. It sounds like it, based off of how I understand it, it sounds like it should be a condition. And if you don't want to come up with specific numbers now, just coming to an agreement of how to set up the working group and what the purpose of the working group is. I would be very specific about what the outcome is. and why you are making the working group.
Okay, that's helpful. So I don't know. I would argue that something along the lines of a motion to condition the special permit on the establishment of a working group to discuss and come up with a formula for profit sharing
On
with
the
that
excess,
profit to go
revenue
for the excess revenue
threshold.
beyond a threshold to go to the Affordable Housing Trust.
And you'll need a time frame as well. So whether you want it done in 90 days for a building permit, so on and so forth.
Okay. So that everything I just said there may be undue. I don't know.
What is this? Are we questioning when to have the? I
when we
think
should
we could do it like I mean the bank is going to wrap this up on Monday, so 30 days because that'll give everybody time to meet. Um,
Why not 60 days? The reason I say 60 days is because if we do it 30 days, then on day 29 we're going to be rushing. I realize that'll happen on day 59 if we do 60.
yes, it will.
But
Yes, it will.
We'll have less of an excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. 60 days from our vote of 60 days from our vote if we approve the special permit.
I think I will say that we're pretty close to agreement on that. So I 60 days might just allow a lot of time for like I sort of prefer the idea of this has to be done and like we're really close on that. It's just a matter of sort of like closing the sort of like I guess going hard with the I'm gonna make up some stuff based on working groups I've been sitting in and not deep knowledge, but basically going hard with the bank and negotiating a couple of construction numbers. Like I think we're close.
You know what I think about, Kerry? I agree. You know, the four of us or five of us, we feel really close about this. But when I think about having to run to get a legal opinion before we can move forward, this, can add time.
Yeah.
More so on our side, right? I mean,
Okay.
it's just, I don't know. I understand. I completely understand what you're saying. We all feel like we've been at this
45
for a long
days to
time.
split it.
Sure. Yes.
Well, you go 60, then I'm the chair and I can kick butt. Not
Okay.
that Brian wouldn't.
Yeah.
No.
I will say I sincerely hope no attorneys are involved in this negotiation. I really hope this is just envelope back and forth, spreadsheet done.
Oh,
Yeah.
there will be attorneys involved, I promise.
Oh, can you do this?
While
Can't
we
you
love
do
them, we
that?
love them as the bench, not the player.
Yeah, we love attorneys. Some of our best friends are attorneys.
Some of our
Some
husbands
of us are married to attorneys.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Some of our best husbands.
So 45 or 60 days from a vote of the planning board to approve a special permit?
So
Which
this
one?
is a motion to set up a working group to negotiate the excess revenue threshold payments and payments under that clause to be concluded within 45 days, did we say?
Sure. I'm good with
Sure.
45.
45 is good.
I'm a little more comfortable with you saying with it being on the date that the decision is recorded with the town clerk. It just gives it a little more.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that's better.
That's better. I was just trying to come up with a date, and I see that before we vote this, you've just changed it to 45 days from the vote, the date that it's given to the town clerk, I think is what was.
And Paul has his hand raised.
Yeah, I was gonna let him speak as well. Yeah, Paul.
Thank you. Just for clarification, because if this is, I'm not exactly sure what you're voting on, and how this will affect us, because this has to be knocked down just like everything else by today. If it's a matter of, administratively, how are we going to make this work? I think there's no problem with the time, but are we going to be using this time to discuss the structure and the amount, because that would be a problem for us, if just so you're aware, or is it more to be used to iron out some of the mechanics, like timing or something?
I think the latter, from
Me
what I'm
too.
hearing.
Yep.
Anybody disagree with that?
No, we got the numbers. We're just going to talking about mechanics and timing.
Administrative, as you said.
Yep. Yep.
Okay,
Agreed.
great. Would it be possible? I don't want to be presumptuous, but could you say that in your motion, that what is already being defined? Because it would go a long way to know that basically the language here is sort of approved.
Yep.
And that would be great. Thank you.
So we're
Withdraw that
working-
motion and make a new motion, I would argue, just easier.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to set up a working.
Wait.
Oh, go
Should we
ahead.
make sure, because we've left this as a hanging piece of information, so maybe we should clearly define what that agreement is. Just sort of so maybe we have Marty or me or somebody open the last version of it. I just want to make sure that we have stated it's a 15% sharing. I'm going to get this wrong.
15% bonus payment subject to a $1 million cap. And what we are negotiating, if I understand correctly, is how that's going to be administered. The niggling details of that.
Can we confirm with Marty that is the best way to calculate this, just because that's way outside my depth. So
Me
I just
too.
want to confirm we didn't drop any details.
Okay. Well, don't know how there you are.
Yeah, I mean, the whole working group has, I mean, this is kind of an email literally this morning. And I think we are close on, I think the 15% is kind of what we agreed to. I still personally, and I'm uncomfortable with the cap. I really don't see why there should be a cap, or maybe there's a different sharing when you get above $1 million. I just, that part of that's coming from my lack of comfort with the $2 million number. So, I think the mechanics of the calculation are pretty worked out. I just, there more than one person on the working group. So
is there a counter cap we should?
Paul's got his
Paul's hand
hand
is
raised
up.
again.
Paul, go ahead. We want to be efficient. We'd like to get done today. I agree. So
Yes, thank you. So, if we don't cap it, the investors, we're going to have a hard time raising capital for this. I think John and others, Marty, and everybody that's been involved can probably speak to that. It's insane for us to give 15% of our gross revenue, unlimited upside to the town. The idea was that we doubled the number because we capped it, and so if, at 7% without a cap, we could live with that, because that's going to be more than a grand slam if we ever were to, get to those same numbers. But we moved it to 15%, recognizing some points that were made and how the numbers could work out in the affordable housing group. But we can't leave that open-ended, because we basically have no deal of that. We hamstring ourselves for raising equity if we give all of the upside to the town, who has none of the risk.
Right.
And this was designed to be just kind of a bonus, nothing, we all hope it comes true, but it may not. We have to do really well. And if we do really well, we're not basing this on costs, we're basing it on revenue. And so we have to have a cap. And so I just don't want us to go down the road. If we could live with this language that's written here and talk about the administrative mechanics, and do we include the retail or do we not? We have our positions on those things, which we can talk about, in a different forum over the next 45 days. But the substance of this, I think, from our perspective, call this project, in the bag from the bank's perspective, so we can move on, it would need to have essentially the language that's here,
I'm okay myself. I'm okay with the cap.
Yeah, so am I.
I'm fine with it. It's
Always remember one of my most important points in these meetings is to make sure we've vetted everything so the town has a good idea of our process. It has been many meetings like this.
Yep.
Um,
I mean, that, yes.
So, I mean, I'm okay with the cap. Obviously I'd prefer no cap and but that's just more. Of course I'd prefer more. But again, this is a
I don't think
collaboration.
I don't think we're giving up much,
I don't think we are either.
what,
So we have a motion. I think maybe you should rework that motion a little bit, so that we have the final.
You want to try it, Carrie?
is it
Motion to set up the
is
working
it
group?
helpful to Paul and his work with the bank and investors if we put the details into the motion, or are we just moving to approve the revenue share?
I think it might make sense to move to approve the revenue share and set up a working group to hammer out any details, because there will be details that need to be hammered out.
Administrative details.
Administrative details, but in principle, approve the revenue share.
Okay, so we move to, oh gosh, what's the 64? What's the
15%.
15% above 64? Is it still 60? Do we have 15% above above anticipated gross revenue to a cap of $1 million with the details to be negotiated by a working group within 45 days.
The administrative details.
Administrative details to be worked out within 45 days of the time this decision is recorded with the
Town clerk.
town clerk.
Thank you. Is there a second on that?
Seconded.
We've talked this to death, I assume. So I'm just going to go to a roll call. John,
yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Nick,
Aye.
Carrie.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. The vote is unanimous, 5-0, which by my thinking brings us to sort of what you'd say at town meeting, brings us to the main motion, which is to consider the entirety of the special permit. We've voted site plan review. We've voted lots of conditions. We've now voted payment in lieu. This is for the special permit in its entirety. And I believe, Nick, this is where you had some questions that we wanted to give you a chance to address. As I promised.
I just had a couple things. One is just because it's on my list, and I just want to get it off my list. So when we came up with the 59 feet that was going to be the height cap, that was initially, and it's kind of a minor point, but that was kind of a back of an envelope estimate. And I just wanted to point out, and one of the DRC members brought this to my attention, that so that kind of back of the envelope estimate became the de facto number. It was given weight, but the real number, I guess, instead of 59, is actually the 69 feet minus the sixth floor, which is 11 feet 8 inches, or a total of 57 feet 4 inches. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the board, that maybe that the 57 feet 4 inches is a better number. I'd like to just express my personal opinion that if the applicant is working on the roof and they need more height, then they can come back to us, and I would be happy to give it to them. But I wanted that's my first point for thought and for consideration. And I guess I'll just get the other point off my list as well. I just want to acknowledge that, and I was speaking with one of the other members, that during this whole process, the architects have had to go back and forth at every single stage and redesign the building, and it's become tiresome, and I understand that. And it's become expensive, and I understand that. And the applicant doesn't even own the building at this point, and I understand that. So I'm kind of pushing aside my feelings of that they're kind of ignoring my request to have a conversation. And I just want to ask, I guess, Paul for his kind of for his word that, going as we move forward, that there will be a conversation, and that we will be able to talk about some of the details like the windows, and have a conversation about the design comments that I submitted, a lot of which were in the portfolio of Hassine, that might make the building feel more, have more gravitas and maybe more of a historical quality. So I'm kind of torn. I want to say, well, they're not doing it. They're being very Ayn Randian, and they don't like the opinions of the common people. But I don't think that's fair. I think that we've been just asking them to do so much, and I would just request, from Paul that he kind of give me his word that we'll have a conversation at some point on some of those historic issues.
Thank you, Nick. Paul, I'm going to turn it over to you to address both of those points, both the height, which I believe is 59 feet, but I want to give you a chance to say if it's actually 57.4, we can.
Yeah, the Hassine numbers are 57. It's basically 69 feet less the 11 feet 8 inches, and that I think was the number that Jason was hoping to get to. He just threw out 59 because that was what he thought. That was the estimate. But anyway.
I totally
I'll be quiet.
No, you don't need to be quiet. I was just going to say, Paul, if you could address that, and if you have architects here, I can't see who's here. I'm sure they could address that too. And then the second point about following up with Nick and the DRC about sort of the small details, that some of the things, both of those issues, you feel free to address.
Thank you. Yes. So I'm texting with our architectural team who is here, but I don't think you need to elevate them at this point, because what they're saying to me is, while Nick is correct that 57.4 is like to the inch, the reason we wanted 59 is because we know we don't want to, this business is not to the inch, so we wanted to have a little cushion, insulation, or whatever else might come our way. We would like to keep the 59, but recognizing that our goal is to actually, have it be 57.4. So if that's acceptable, we would like to leave the number as previously voted, 59, but we will do our best to minimize it, down to the 57.4 we need. It's drawn for 57.4, but we need the cushion. Okay.
Can I follow up on that for a second? So, just to reiterate the point, just for the record. So, since you have 59 allowed in the special permit, but you're targeting 57.4, we will expect that you won't add 6 inches to each ceiling to give each one an extra 6 inches when you get to the end. That's really the goal, is just so that when you discover you need an extra 6 inches of insulation to meet the code, you have that flexibility.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I want to point out that it's my opinion, it's my personal opinion, that if we have a conversation going, that we can be flexible on some of those inches. If you guys are working on the roof, or if you're working on something that looks really, really compelling.
Yeah, and we'd rather have the flexibility up front, because we can't really afford the time when we're in the middle of things. But you do have our.
That's fair. That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And related to the sort of trust me kind of relationship that we've developed, absolutely, you have my word that we will consult with you. I don't know if we can meet all of your objectives, of course, but we will definitely consult together. We appreciate the whole board's support, and every board member, sort of seems to have a particular thing that they might be most concerned about. We hear you that, the roof line and other things is a lot of where your focus has been, and we want to be respectful of acknowledging that and trying to make it work as best we can. So we welcome the opportunity to meet together, and we'll make sure we do.
Yeah, and I've always held that Winchester is a unique and special place, and you can look up the definition of unique and special, but I like to think of it that it's not every other city. And we need a building that's not every other city, that is different. Kind of in my musings, I'm thinking, if they make the some of the changes, they'll be embarrassed to put it on their website. And you know, the sort of but then on the other hand, I say, well, give the people what they want is kind of the other angle. You know, and that the kind of the hoi polloi, uneducated, you know, don't toss those out so quickly. You know, Shakespeare developed beautiful plays, and they spoke to the most erudite, but also the lowest of the people in the audience. So I'm just hoping that some good faith effort will be put in to make this a unique and Winchester-oriented ultimate building.
Absolutely. We have our commitment, and ultimately we have our interests are aligned. We want to have the most successful, beautiful building, our names on it forever. And basically that's why we didn't hire sort of a developer's architect. We hired a world-class architect with Haseen, and we'll do our best to balance everybody's visions and ultimately, hopefully, have a beautiful building.
Yeah,
we know we will have succeeded if this building ends up on both the Urban Spaces website as the featured building as well as Haseen's website.
That's right.
Fingers crossed. Are there other, so we have before us, we don't have a motion yet, but a motion to ultimately, we're going to be looking for a motion to approve the special permit as conditioned with all of the previous votes and conditions that we've done over the course of the at least 3 meetings, because we started with site plan review several meetings ago. We completed site plan review last meeting. We did special permit issues last meeting. We've now worked on payment in lieu, the working group. So my understanding that we need that last motion to approve the special permit if we so choose to do so.
So moved.
Seconded.
For the sake of the record, you have moved to approve the special permit as conditioned by all of the previous votes and conditions.
Correct.
Yes.
And it was moved by John and seconded by Jack. So any last questions before we take this vote? I'm going to call the vote. John.
Aye.
Jack.
Yes.
Nick.
Aye.
Carrie.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The vote is unanimous that the special permit is approved for 10 Converse Place. I'm very excited after, I think the entire year of my chairdom was taken up with reviewing this project. Paul, we look forward to working with you as a town and in aspects where we're working with you as individuals or as a board. We also look forward to working with you. We hope this is a win for everyone, the town, you, the residents who move in here, and the commercial spaces that move in there, and a boon for the shoreline. And really, I hope it's a win for everyone.
Thank you for everything. The board, you worked tirelessly. The other constituents who were both for and against the project at various points. We appreciate all the feedback. We think we have the best possible project that came out of this, and looking forward to being newly seeing you around town probably every day instead of every Tuesday. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. With that, I would happily take a motion to close the public hearing.
Wow. Actually close it, not continue it.
Yeah, so moved.
Seconded, please.
And we're going to take a ceremonial roll call. John.
Aye.
Jack.
Aye.
Nick.
Aye.
Carrie.
Thank you, everyone. I can't believe it's over. Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you as well. And that brings us to regular business of our meeting. Well, we have nothing listed. I know that Jack had a committee update that he wanted to share, and I think that that's perfectly acceptable despite not being specifically listed on the agenda.
Oh, it's a very small item. The TMMA bulletin next issue is coming out on March 10th, the same day as our public hearing. The deadline for content is March 7th. I have no ideas, and I'm only asking if anybody has any idea, if we have anything we want to say. Maybe we just state the obvious that we finally close this chapter in 100 words or less, which will be really tough. I'll do it.
You will do it. You will do it on the dot. You will do it in 99 words and give him a penny back.
Probably have it in your inbox tonight, knowing me.
I think that would be a great update that people would, I suspect this is probably on the town Facebook page already, but if not, I think those of us who aren't on Facebook anymore, myself included, would be happy to get the TMMA newsletter indicating that. So why don't you, if you're willing to, why don't you work on that, and we will get that out.
May I take a moment also, as Paul said, to thank all the concerned public citizens who were so engaged in this. It was refreshing to see this town so caring about what we do in our downtown business district, and it's important to this board to hear those voices, and I hope we keep hearing them.
Hear, hear. I totally agree. This was the most engagement I have seen by the public in anything for the planning board as either a member or a viewer in many years. And so I think that speaks to how much they care. And I'd like to also think that we as a committee responded to what we heard. Not everyone's going to be happy, but we certainly responded. So hopefully that's a good outcome.
Agreed.
I have any other board or committee updates? So as far as future meetings, we would normally have a meeting scheduled next week. We do not. The meeting will be on the 10th. That will be a public hearing for consideration of short-term rentals. And then we will have several ZBA petitions, but we get a week off this next week. So
that meeting will be a Zoom call, correct?
That'll be a Zoom call. We've been trying to have our first meeting be a Zoom call of the month, and it turns out I am also potentially out of town, so Zoom works well. And I know, unfortunately, that John was going to be on an airplane, so I don't believe John's going to be able to connect to that call. But that is the first of many topics on the many public hearings on potential revisions to that bylaw. So
we're going to be talking about public rentals as they relate to potential tax revenue as well as ZBA petitions on that day.
Yes, we will not be talking about how they relate to necessarily how they relate to tax revenue, because that's sort of out of our purview. We'll be talking about whether we want to specifically allow them in the bylaw, specifically exclude them, regulate them. Right now, the bylaw is somewhat agnostic to them. So that will be the topic of conversation, which we have not really had a full conversation about yet because it needs to be in a public hearing.
There's no just logistically, is there, we have the, maybe we'll take this offline, but we have the hanging question of whether hybrid arrangements are allowed. And now that this proposal is closed, but Springtown meeting is not yet before us, I think it might be worth doing a quick push to see if we should just think logistically if it's possible for Springtown meeting, because that is clearly an urgent priority. So we can take that sort of question offline with whomever, but we should not let that ball drop if we don't have to.
Well,
just so I can be thinking about it, what's a hybrid arrangement?
That would have been units in the building plus a payment in lieu instead of one or the other.
I see. Okay.
And that would need to be discussed for both North Main Street and the CBD because they're basically the same language.
Okay. Oh, yeah. We probably want to have flexibility, but I guess we'll talk when the time comes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's likely to come up, and if we want to have the option,
close the loop in spring, that would be great. I think it's something everyone's educated on, so I think the lift of getting town meeting members on board is lower than we normally have for the thrilling work of zoning, but it's worth trying. If we can add it to the public hearing agenda, I don't know, it's worth thinking about.
Okay. We can't add it to the public hearing agenda. It's too late. We have to have posted it in time.
Is it a month? I never remember the timing.
It's like 14 days. I'm making up the numbers. It's like 14 days, and it requires being posted in the newspaper and various things. So let's take that offline. And
Yep.
so I think that's a fair question, and I'm writing it down right now.
Okay.
A motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Carrie, seconded by
John, I think.
John. Roll call, John,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Nick,
Aye.
Carrie.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, votes unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.